the best coaches in the game. We really ain't playing. We regroup up in the Slack chat where the coaches debrief. We be piecing these puzzles, occupy the chunk of the pie. Ain't no lie when we hit the block, helmet's casket is top. You be seeing helmet after helmet, helmet after helmet. First place, second place, fifth place, eighth place, 12th place, 15, 16, 20. So many helmets, you got blurred vision, we got...
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another Bold Call Fantasy Football Podcast presented by DFS ARMY. Today, we're going over the QB and tight end positional rankings. We're going to take a look at the overall rankings, and we're going to show you guys where you should be targeting these players in your season-long drafts for both standard and super flex leagues. Joining me, as always, the Encyclopedia Footballica, a man who has studied more tight ends than anything else or anyone else that you know. Mr. Season Long says himself, Alan Seslowsky. What's up, my man?
Is it safe to say we're back like in full? I mean, we've always been in full football mode, but like I'm starting to see a lot of interest in people getting looking at football rankings a lot earlier this year, and that makes me very happy.
Well, you know, fantasy football season long has become a game where there are now all these different types of approaches. We've got Dynasty's going strong right now. Of course, best ball leagues. It's best ball season right now. Start drafting those best ball leagues. So the interest in fantasy football rankings, season-long rankings, has just gone up massively. And, you know, you and I have been consuming this stuff since day one, but it's great to see other people sort of getting more and more into it right now.
Oh yeah. No, and if you haven't heard our podcast, if you missed it last time, we talked about the running back and wide receivers. We more or less just kind of hash it out on the live stream here. You know, we just go through it, see who's in order, who do we need to move. We kind of do it in real time.
Yeah.
And today what we'll do is we'll go through the quarterbacks first from a 1 QB and super flex perspective, and then a little bit in the tight end area.
Yes. So the approach we're going to do here is we're going to start with the QB position. We're going to just do our rankings. We'll start the easy ones up top. We'll kind of do it as a mock draft style. So kind of I'll go first, says you'll go second, and we'll say, all right, who's our number one guy? All right, you're on the clock. You have to take a QB. Who are you taking number 2 overall? And we're going to sort of create a QB ranking system here that you guys will hear the thought process through, and we'll kind of break it down for everybody. And then we'll talk a little bit about, all right, where should we be taking these guys? You know, in a super flex league versus a standard season-long league. Obviously, we have been on team fade the QB for many, many years in standard season-long leagues, which is why Sez and I both now have embraced fully the beauty of Superflex, which brings the QB position back into relevance. So we'll talk about all of that here, and I think let's just get started, man.
Yeah, I mean, you want to do it as a draft. I think it's a little bit obvious at the top. We can kind of talk about it, just the top rankings, because that is important.
The top 2 are obvious. I think you can make an argument for QB3 that is not the standard. So I think the top 2 are very obvious. And let's just, you know, I think everybody, all right, so we're just going to start on the QB position. And the top 2 guys, it's Pat Mahomes and Josh Allen, number 1, number 2.
Yeah, and honestly, if you wanted to take Josh Allen number 1, he finished his number 1 last year. It's totally reasonable, and I know it's like unthinkable because in Dynasty we're taking Pat Mahomes as the QB1. But when you just talk about like one season, Buffalo, I mean, they have a ton of upside. I think Kansas City might run a little bit more, but it is Pat Mahomes. So those 2 are definitely tier 1. I don't care which order you take them in. So it starts to get interesting when you talk about the next group, because I think there is a top 6 that you kind of need to have, right? You kind of need to have.
I don't know if you need to have anybody at QB, depending on what league type you're in. But what I want to bring this to, so we talked about the 2 top guys. If you're in a super flex league, those are picks number 1 and 2. Super flex being a league that allows for 2 QBs. QBs are the most valuable position in super flex. And but so you're going to take...
Even in 1 QB, man, there's 6 QBs that are really difference makers, right? And you're going to want to have one of those quarterbacks.
I would argue you can wait.
Yeah. Oh, no, you can wait, but you're trying to take, like, for example, you and I both like Jalen Hurts, and we'll talk about him. Yeah. And you can get him outside of those top 6. But
that's what I'm saying.
You agree that he's one of the top 6 that we want.
Yes.
So
if
he's going in round, just say like 8, right? we're going to tell people to go take him in the beginning around 7.
Yes.
Because
yes.
that's what I'm talking about. I don't mean you have to reach for, Aaron Rodgers,
There you go. Okay. Because Aaron Rodgers might be, he's not in the top 6 of mine, but like
we have him right now in the rankings at number 7. I didn't want to move him until we talked. Do you think it's time to move him down a little bit, right?
I would be moving him down.
All right. So I'm going to do it right now as we talk.
Yeah. So yeah, he can be moved down, but let's go. So we started with Pat Mahomes, Josh Allen in a season-long league that is not super flex. What round says, are you comfortable grabbing a Pat Mahomes or a Josh Allen? Like, where's the point? What round, what player are you looking at that you're like, I could get, this Chris Carson, or maybe I'm just going to take Pat Mahomes here. Like, what is the name of the player where you get to that point in your rankings where you're like, I can go for a QB here, even in a 1 QB season long team.
Okay. So you and I are not going to have any Pat Mahomes in our 1 QB leagues, right?
No.
The few 1 QB, because he goes in round 3. I would probably say, I know, like if I say, hey, I wouldn't take him till round 4. What's the difference between round 3 and round 4? A lot. The difference between round 11 and round 10 is not a lot, but the difference between round 4 and round 3 is a lot. And it's because obviously the players in the top 36 are players that you're putting in your lineup every week. You're just setting it and forgetting it. Those are the foundation of your team. And it's not so much that we don't like Pat Mahomes. It's that you need to fill out your roster first with 3 positional players, even if one of those is going to be a tight end in your build, which I don't like either, but I understand if it is. So it would have to be the end of round 4 where the options start to get to what you just said, like the running backs that don't have a lot of upside that are more floor based. Or the wide receivers, again, if Terry McLaurin falls to round 4, which I don't think he's going to in any draft, I'm taking Terry McLaurin over Pat Mahomes. Not that I don't think Pat Mahomes is not going to score more points, but then, I'll take a quarterback at the next stop or the next pick or the one after that. So,
it's something we talk about every year in standard season long. If you're still in standard leagues that are not super flex guys,
when you say standard leagues, you mean 1 QB.
1 QB leagues. Now I'm calling that standard. Not that PPR is like standard. Like if you're not doing PPR, what are you doing? If you're in 1 QB leagues and you haven't figured out that the guy who wins your league every year always has a later round quarterback on their team, like you should have observed that and figured it out by now that you shouldn't be taking fucking Pat Mahomes in the 3rd round. I don't care how good he is. He's not that much better. He wasn't number 1 last year, and he's not that much better than the next 5 or 6 guys from a total scoring point of view. So don't do that. Stop losing your leagues, because I've told people this says, and they still do it. And they're like, I know, and I knew it was the right thing, but I saw Pat Mahomes sitting there and I couldn't help myself. And I go, what the fuck is wrong with you? You always lose because you keep doing this. Don't get sucked in. Now that being said,
I mean, you know what it is? It's like the week 1 you go against Pat Mahomes and he puts up a 38-pointer against you and you get pissed. It
doesn't matter. Listen to me. Listen to Sez. You're in a single QB league. You do not want an early quarterback. You will lose the league unless it's a 10 team. There are scenarios where it's okay, but for the most part, don't fucking do that. Okay. Yeah. Now let's go to number 3. Now this guy, Kyler Murray, is the consensus number 3 guy. Now
we don't have him at 3. We don't have him at 3.
He's a consensus pick at number 3.
Right, but I'm just telling you, the DFS Army rankings do not have him.
I'm assuming we have Dak Prescott there.
Correct.
So this is what I wanted to contrast. If you look at ADP today, Kyler Murray is the clear number 3 guy that's going off the board. We have Dak Prescott there at the moment, and the debate starts now on these 2 guys in terms of why one over the other. So I'll make an argument for Kyler Murray here.
Oh, so you think Murray should be 3?
I think Murray should be 3.
Okay, I'm actually going to be moving, just to full disclosure here, I'm going to be moving Murray down to 5.
There you go. So the negative on Murray is he just did come out today talking about how he needs to run less and focus more on his passing game.
Smartly, by the way, right? I mean, you agree that is probably how he's going to grow as a football player.
What I agree with was, here's what I took from that. Last year, all right, I'm going to take you back to my podcast from last year with John. The Vegas Lines podcast that we do every week.
Great podcast, by the way. Great.
Yeah, you got to watch that in season.
Appointment listening.
Yeah, you want to watch that in season, right? So I'm going to take you back to that podcast, And we talked about when Murray hurt his shoulder, we said, fade Kyler Murray. He had been coming off of some of the best games ever. But these running quarterbacks, what happens? We saw the same thing with Lamar Jackson. Tweaks the ankle, all of a sudden, he turns into garbage. Fantasy garbage. Because Murray could not do anything in those games. When they said, hey, the shoulder's hurt, let's just not have him running around, his fantasy production went in the toilet. So this is the reason why you could have a Dak. Dak doesn't need the rushing to score points. His team, that offense, that terrible defense, forces him to constantly be throwing. So I understand why you have an argument for Dak Prescott there. But
and by the way, I love Kyler Murray. He's in our tier. He's in our tier 2. He's in our tier 2. Like, we're not upset if we get Kyler Murray. I think the difference is everything you just said is that there's going to be an actual effort for him to run less, and that's where he gets his value. And I'm just not sure that just at his size, he's going to be able to make all of those throws over the linemen. I think he's going to be great. He's a tier 1 quarterback. You're like thrilled to get him. But let's remember what Dak Prescott was doing when he was healthy in the first 4 weeks of the season. He was averaging close to 40 fantasy points. We love the Dallas weapons. We think that that's going to be Kansas City of the NFC, right? As far as fantasy points. Yeah. And Dak is just like, he's fully realized. He's fully seasoned. I mean, he rushes in a few touchdowns every year. It just seems more solid to me. And again, we're talking about like the top here, but there's a reason like Murray is it's always a little dicey with Murray. Like, it was great, but I'm just like always a little worried. Like, there's no worries about Dak Prescott and the weapons around him.
Kyler's work with his arm, and I'm going to make an excuse for him. He's had the terrible wide receivers. Like, outside of DeAndre Hopkins, they have nothing at wide receiver. Now, you might say, well, DeAndre Hopkins is the best wide receiver in the game. And sure, but they still didn't have complementary wide receivers. Unfortunately, they really still kind of don't. So I don't think like that complementary group in Arizona. I mean, do you think they did anything in Arizona that really is to help Kyler? I mean,
well, they drafted Rondale Moore out of Purdue, and everyone likes Rondale Moore. He's, going to be a
fine.
Chase Edmonds presumably is going to be a good pass catcher, but you're right. With their big offseason, what they added the corpse of AJ Green. It's like, so
this is what I'm saying. They did nothing to help this guy. AJ Green is like, okay, we have Larry Fitzgerald and AJ Green. What are we running the senior circuit over here? Like,
do you think this is a good spot? You hear a lot about how Zach Ertz might get cut or traded. Do you think this is a good Zach Ertz spot?
Yes. Great. So they need Zach Ertz. They need somebody to take pressure. Christian Kirk is not that guy. Andy Isabella, enough already. Enough.
Yeah, it's over, Johnny.
Stop it.
It's over.
If I hear that guy's name again, I'm going to ring somebody's. No.
Well, if Ertz gets traded here, like, he's like instantly like tight end 9, right?
Yeah, and with upside. Serious upside.
So like I'm saying, like right now he's going tight end 26.
He drafted him on a few of my dynasties this year because no one wants him.
I think we have him too. I got to move him. I have him at tight end 28. I'm doing that right now. So, okay, this is part of why we're doing this. I am moving him right now.
Yeah. So there we go. We are the DFS Army rankings are being adjusted in real time, guys. So as we break this stuff down, so let's continue with this quarterback position. But Dak Prescott, number 3 overall. I agree with you. So many weapons. Lamb, Cooper, Gallup, I don't know, one of the Jarwin, Schultz, whoever the tight end that emerges over there. There's some other guys that are reasonable wide receivers that are kind of hanging behind the trying to remember Quincy, Cedric Wilson. So they have some nice pieces behind the top group at wide receiver. But most importantly, they have a terrible defense and teams can score against them. So they always are playing catch up. So that combination of factors just leads Dak to yeoman-like quarterback play. And the fact that Zeke's dominance has gone down is helping Dak as well. So I'm fine with it. And he's not as vulnerable to Kyler Murray to, let's say, like a little mini injury that all of a, or the coach deciding they don't want to run him as much. And all of a sudden, like a massive drop off in the production. So I'm down with that. So let's talk QB4.
Okay. I mean, you would have Dak there, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah, I'm fine with Dak in that spot. Totally cool with it.
Right. Obviously, I don't. I mean, I told you already. I have Murray at 5, so I've moved Lamar Jackson up.
Yeah, Lamar Jackson, QB4.
Yeah. So basically, what's our? You hit the big complaint with him on. Right on the head over the years. Like, he hasn't been good as a passer. So what did the team do is they surrounded him with better passing weapons. They Sammy Watkins, for better for worse, is a professional wide receiver. They added him. They drafted who I think was the second best receiver in this class in Rashad Bateman, the Giant, the third. I would say the third best receiver. Jamar Chase and Devontae Smith there. Cut above, but he was definitely wide receiver 3 and very close to Devontae Smith in our rankings. So they added him. They are definitely they know they need to pass more. I think Lamar's look what Josh Allen did last year. I'm not saying he's going to make a Josh Allen like leap, but this is the natural progression. He's already mastered being a running quarterback. I think that Lamar underperformed expectations last year, but what's our favorite fantasy football strategy? Look what happened in the last month of the season when someone who disappointed. He came on for fantasy. The floor is so high, and I still think that an MVP ceiling, he was already the MVP, is in play. I'm going to be a little bit more bullish on Lamar. You don't have to take him at QB4. He's going like QB7 or 8, which is like a full round later. But in our rankings, I like him a little bit better than Murray because I like the team better than Murray.
So the biggest factor for me that actually works against Lamar Jackson is just that the Ravens have a good defense and they tend to keep games low scoring. That's not going to change, but you're right. The supporting cast for the Ravens, who the fuck is Miles Boykin and Devin Duvernay and Willie Snizzles in terms of a supporting cast? He added a number 1 wide receiver. You've got Mark Andrews coming back super healthy.
Well, yeah, and that's what I think. Andrews is going to improve. He dropped a few touchdowns.
Yeah.
Like, he was not Andrews last year. He even just gets back to where he was, plus, all the receivers they added in. And now Marquise Brown, who blew the fuck up in the last 6 weeks. Dude, do you realize from week 12 to week 17, so the last 5 or 6 weeks of the season, what wide receiver ranking was Marquise Brown?
Wasn't he like top 5?
I mean, wide receiver 13. So, but still, I mean, he was like, he was droppable before that. He was droppable.
He scored a bunch of touchdowns, but also he's been miscast as the number 1 wide receiver. He's not going to be that. As a matter of fact, the Ravens got a kid in the 4th round that is going to be a starter as well. I can't remember his name.
You're talking about Tylan Wallace?
Yes. So
was he a 4th round pick or was he a 6th round pick?
No, I believe he's in the 4th round.
I'm going to look it up while we're talking because that's
look that up. But that's another piece. Like, that's an improvement over Devin Duvernay, fucking Willie Snead, Miles Boykin. So this group has massively improved, and no longer do you have Marquise Hollywood Brown miscast as a number 1. Now he's that Y wide receiver, the burner, where you've got the X in Bateman and you've got Mark Andrews clear in the field. It's a whole new world for that offense. They have a great shot at being good. They're still going to be run first.
Yeah, you're right. 4th round, man.
Yeah, he dropped to the 4th round. That dude.
Yeah, no, he was projected to be a day 2 pick and he ended up being a day 3 pick.
Sorry, the names, I'm having a hard time remembering all the rookie names.
That's fine. I mean, as soon as he catches a couple touchdowns, he'll be well in the DFS lexicon. There we go.
So really good stuff. I totally love it. And of course, that brings us to number 5 now, where we have Kyler Murray. I agree with you. Kyler Murray needs to.
Wait, so you're good with me keeping Lamar Jackson? Okay, all right, good. Because that'll be different than the consensus too.
I don't mind. Listen, we had Lamar Jackson as a top QB when the consensus was QB 18. You had Josh Allen last year as a number 1 pick when the consensus was
pick, and he was the number 1 overall pick.
Yeah, but the consensus was QB 7, 8.
Yep.
Like, we've been ahead of the game with the QB position. We're going to continue that. That's why you come to the bowl call, not to get generic crap takes from TV personalities. We're talking. We play this for big money, guys.
Now, instead of just going through our rankings, the people that are part of DFS Army can go look at them. Let's just talk about a few different things and where I want to massage out my rankings. For those of you who are not DFS Army members, go over now, use code SAYS, you get 10% off, check out our rankings or draft kits live. All right, let's talk about the guy who made news this week, and that's Julio Jones trade, which affected Ryan Tannehill and Matt Stafford. Where do you think I have ranked Matthew Stafford? Sorry, not Matthew. Matt Ryan and Ryan Tannehill now. Where do you think they should be now? Just again, QB what? Without even looking.
Well, it's hard for me to throw like a number. I would say this. I don't have Matt Ryan as like really draftable as a top 24 QB.
Right. I am right now at QB 19, but I'm dropping him probably to QB 22.
Yeah, I don't have him as like a guy that you're excited to have on your team by any stretch. And this doesn't help. What does help Matt Ryan and continues to be good for him is, number one, they have a touchdown catcher in Pitts that potentially could elevate the touchdown upside of Matt Ryan. And number two, they don't have any running back really that's dominant. So they're going to have to throw for tutties on that team. So, those things are still positive. By the way, Julio was not a touchdown scorer or a great one for the Falcons anyway. So, it hurts Matt Ryan, but I didn't love him before, and I don't love him.
I didn't love him before.
Yeah.
But now how about Tannehill? I mean, I saw that you made a tweet that you didn't think it affected Tannehill. I think it really helps him. I mean, you're adding like another elite efficiency monster in Julio Jones. And I know like Julio Jones is never healthy, blah, blah, blah. But it's, you and I have talked about it. He missed half the season last year, but before that, he hadn't missed a game. And I know the problem with Julio is even like when he plays hurt. So sometimes he's a decoy, but
yeah,
listen,
this idea that he hasn't, wait, I want to debate that. Hold on a second. Cause I've heard this is bullshit. Missing a game is not, the guy gets hurt a lot. And when he has those hurt games, he goes out and plays. He goes out and plays as a decoy. That's the worst thing. I would rather you don't play because Julio, who goes out. So instead of looking at, hey, how many games? Because I've heard this argument on Twitter. This is like firing me up. On Twitter, it's got me fired up because you got people saying Julio has only been hurt. He only missed a few games. Like, bullshit. This guy for the last 3 years is hurt all the time. He's got the Q tag. He's got the hammy issues. You never know if he's going to go out there as a decoy or if he's actually out there playing with full force. And to me, that's worse because at least tell me that you're hurt and get out. You want to tough it out as a decoy and then you screw me. I play you on my fucking team. You get me a 0. I'm like, dude, don't come into hold up. Now, this is the comparison. Your coworker, he didn't come into the office that day. What's up with you? You call him up. He's sniffling. Sounds like shit. He's coughing. You're like, oh, thank God he stayed home. He's like, bro, I missed out. I'm going to come in tomorrow. And you're like, what? Now, before you even get a chance to say, no, he hangs with the phone. He goes, this motherfucker better not come in tomorrow, bro.
Right. You don't want to get sick.
Next day, you show up in your office and he's in your office, like talking to you, coughing, sneezing all over you. He wants to shake your arm. You're like, bro, stand at the fucking doorway. Don't come in. What are you doing here? Go home. Okay? Don't get me sick because you got work you got to do. Go home, work from home. It's fucking COVID. And even before, by the way, this is before COVID. No one comes in sick anymore. Thank goodness. Thank goodness for COVID. No one comes into the office sick. You come into the office sick now, we throw garlic at you and fucking
what do they say? Coughing is the new farting, right? You don't do it in public.
Why? You're coughing and you're in the office. But this is before COVID, by the way. This doesn't even have nothing to do with that. Like, there's nothing worse than your coworker that comes in sick. Don't be a hero. Go home. It's fine. Like, we don't want you here. All right? That's you, Julio. Don't be a hero. Go home.
Yeah, I was wondering how you're going to tie that all together. All right, that makes sense. So, but yeah, back to Ryan Tannehill though. I mean, you're adding one. Julio was still like I think 11.3.
Wait. I got more. If you're sick, I don't want you on the pod, bro. I don't even want those vibes coming through. Like, you know what? We'll record it tomorrow. All right. Now we can move on.
Fair enough. Yeah, no, Julio, efficiency monster, 11.3 yards per target, which is still like super elite. When he did play, there was like with Andre Johnson, which is the best comparable, like the all Hall of Fame wide receiver that kind of fell off at the end, but Julio Jones did not fall off. I don't think that he's going to fall off this year. Now, there could be a situation where, there's some chemistry issues, but we saw in the past that narrative where wide receiver, shattered with the super.
Stephon Diggs has eliminated that narrative. Like,
Stephon Diggs and DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah.
Now, so the new narrative is that it doesn't affect the superstars. Now, I heard somebody say this. I'm going to give them credit. His name is Mike Salfino. He's a Wall Street Journal reporter, and he's very into the fantasy stuff. But he said something interesting, and I'm curious what your take on this is. It's not so much when receivers go to new teams that they have to get up to speed and it takes a year. It's when receivers go to new teams with a new role. For example, Corey Davis, right? He thrived as the number 2 receiver in Tennessee. Now he's going to the Jets, becoming the number 1 receiver.
That's not what I'm hearing, by the way.
Well, right. Elijah Moore, we know that. But I'm saying is when you are upgraded. So another example might be Juju Smith-Schuster. He didn't even go to another team, but when he was recast his role as the number 1, that's sometimes when you have trouble adjusting because now you're facing alpha corners. So it's not so much the new team, it's the new role that can stall you out for a year.
As opposed to like a Diggs who was number 1 everywhere he's ever gone. Hopkins, number 1 wide receiver everywhere he's ever gone.
And he was actually undercast as the number 1, right? Like it was always like feeling, and Diggs. They didn't throw to enough. He was actually ready to be the number 1.
Yeah.
Hopkins was always the number 1. He wasn't miscast. No. He wasn't changing. He wasn't upgrading his role.
I think when Julio is out there, so on the positive side for Tanner, when
you're in on that theory.
Yeah. When Julio's out, he's going to be fine. Like when he has his healthy games, he's always good. He's still a talented guy. And I agree with you in the sense that you said, I didn't see a drop off in the talent of the player. I did not. And I have not seen a drop off in his talent, but he gets hurt a lot. He's another year older. And what I expect are many, many more hamstring issues, knee issues, and questionable tags that we're not going to be sure. So for me, as Julio as a player, I'm not excited to draft him. I am not moving him up. As a matter of fact, it's a downgrade for him across the board for me. And I don't like the Q tag. Not sure if he's a decoy situation. That is death of a fantasy league. Right. But for Tannehill, it's only positive.
So it's an upgrade. So, okay. So just take a guess. I mean, you're not, I'm not going to hold, this isn't.
I'm looking at the rankings. I know where you have him ranked. Like I have.
All right. Open. So it's QB 10. All right. Yeah. All right. So a couple other guys I want to ask you about in the rankings now. Jalen.
Just to give you an idea, you're not out of the norm. If you look at like ADP right now for Tannehill, he is sitting at QB 11. So this is the norm for where he's ranked. Like
we've always had him there though. We didn't really, we always, I think, he was sitting around QB 13, QB 14.
Yeah. And maybe a couple here. And it's interesting because I can make some arguments against that, but let's go. So we talked about our top 5 already. Now, number 6 is a really interesting spot where you can go a lot of different ways. And here I'm going to, I actually have a number 6 that's going to surprise you. I believe that the number 6 QB for the 2021 NFL season is Jalen Hurts.
No problem there. I got no problem with that.
The guy runs the football. He's a ton. He is Lamar Jackson level with the frequency of rushing. Tack onto it that the Eagles have at least somewhat improved their passing corps. They added Devonta Smith. I think Jalen Reagor actually maybe not as bad as we thought, and maybe it's possible that he will not suck. I hope. I have
Dallas Goedert.
Dallas Goedert's there. So, Greg Ward, they have their group. They're not going to rely on running backs. They just don't do that. So
I love the running back pass catchers, though. I mean, they have Miles Sanders, and I like Kenny Gainwell, man. Kenny Gainwell, he was. I went back and rewatched him, and he can catch the football. I mean, he performed well. I'm surprised he went as late as he did in the draft. I thought he would be like a 3rd round pick, but it just seemed like all the running backs fell this year. So I think they have plenty of pass catchers there.
And across the board, though, we know our running quarterbacks don't love throwing to running backs anyway.
It just helps, though. I'm saying all this points good. Back to Jalen Hurts.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any Eagles other than Devontae Smith you take a shot out in the 7th or 8th round that you're happy to draft. Maybe, you know what? I'm going to take that back. Goddard, if especially when Zach Ertz is eventually traded or released, I'm really excited to take him. Like, if I miss out on like the elite guy, which I probably will, like Goddard's my target. Goddard and Higbee are both of our targets.
Yeah, we like both of those guys. But, I mean, bringing it back to Hurts, because this is an out-of-the-norm ranking. Most people will have Russell Wilson and then Justin Herbert and maybe, some other names in this zone. The reason I'm going with Hurts here, We've seen him do it at an NFL level in a bunch of games last year. What we saw was that he is willing to run the football enough to make up for any sort of lack of ability to throw. He's going to get you a really strong 20-point floor almost every single week just from his rushing prowess. He'll get you 70, 80 yards and a touchdown most weeks. So he just doesn't have to do very much with the football. And as a bonus, outside of the Redskins, which we don't want a piece of those two games when they play, Redskins defense, very, very good. He gets to play Dallas twice. He gets to play the Giants twice. And those two teams have very bad defenses, especially Dallas. Giants defense maybe less bad, but still not good, and particularly vulnerable to rushing QBs. So
the NFC East is going to have some shootouts this year.
Yeah, there's going to be scoring going on in this NFC. Outside of the Redskins are going to shut everybody down and just destroy this league.
Even Fitzpatrick, I mean, he's a pinball machine for
he can throw, but you can't score on the Redskins. That's the difference. Those teams, I guess, like a Dallas offense. Like I don't see the Giants scoring on the Redskins, but that Dallas offense is going to score. So those games will be fun. But we'll see a lot of scoring in the NFC East. So I like Jalen Hurts here, and I'm going to throw some other curveballs, but. Up next, I'll go to you on this one. So up next, I'm assuming I'll let you say it.
Yeah, I mean, you want to go to? I was just going to skip around and just say like, hey, what do you think about this guy's ranking?
Well, all right. Let me point out a guy who a lot of consensus has here. So the next two names on the sort of consensus list would be Justin Herbert and Russell Wilson. Right? Everybody loves Russ, but I'm going to tell you something about Russ. Russ is on a team that wants to run the football. I say this every single year, no one listens. I sound like an idiot for the first 4 games of last season. And then the Russ that I knew and loved came back and was like, yeah, there it is. The Pete Carroll, this is a coaching tendency situation. I love Russell. I love him as a person. He's an awesome guy. I love that he represents shorter dudes because that's my people. That's my tribe. So Russell, we're on the same tribe. Like, we go to Passover Seder together, me and him, tribal. But here's the deal. His team just wants to run the football, and they will run it if they can. And they'll shut him down. They did the crazy shootout thing for a few games last year. You saw that great version of Wilson, but they reverted right back to, hey, let's be conservative. If we're ahead or if it's a close game, we're not going to take chances. So Wilson will deliver a lot of games where he's only getting you 14, 16 fantasy points. It's that simple. He'll have the 40s because he has that talent in him. And when they need it, it comes out. And I think we'll probably get more games like that than less next season. But for a top 6 or 7, I don't want any games like that. Yeah. That's why Hurts is there. Hurts is probably never going to get you a game where he doesn't score 18, 20 fantasy points, just because running around, you almost can't not score that. Like unless you're up against the Redskins or something, and I'm not playing him that week. So beyond that, it'll be very obvious when he's going to score 18, 20, 22 points. He might not have the 45-point game that Wilson has 2 of throughout the course of the season, but I think he'll be more consistent. What do you think?
Yeah, the pushback on Russell Wilson is that he was vocal that he wanted to throw more. And obviously think about this, like the first 8 weeks of the season, it was Russ cooking. The second 8 weeks of the season, it was not good. If that season was flipped around, right? If it was the other way around and the first part of the season was kind of mediocre and the last part was exploding, we'd be talking about Russell Wilson as the QB3 right now, maybe even QB2. So I'm still in on Russell Wilson. I understand if you want to take Jalen Hurts above him for the upside, but Russ Wilson was a little bit more vocal about needing to throw more. They did get some offensive line help. And in the second round, they which was their first pick. They didn't have a first round pick. The Jets owned it. And they took Dwayne Eskridge, who was a pro-ready receiver. He's 24 years old. He's not a 21-year-old that needs development. He's coming into the NFL. So they extended Tyler Lockett. They still have DK Metcalf. I think they're going to throw. I think Russ is going to end up being, and I think a lot of people are going to think exactly the way you described. And there's going to be two sets of people. One that just draft Russ on name value, that overdraft him, and then people that ignore him based on the last 8 weeks of the season. I think there's a sweet spot if you find that wide receivers and running backs and tight ends are falling, that when everyone scoops in on those elite quarterbacks, you might be able to get Russ at QB 10, like you said, which then I think is a very interesting way to play it.
And let me bring this around for actually a other league types here real quick. If we are talking single QB season-long fantasy leagues, Russell Wilson for me, and this tier we've now passed. We hit a tier drop as soon as we hit our top 5 with Kyler Murray. There is a massive tier drop here. To the why am I explaining this? I really don't care. I would never draft Russell Wilson over like any sort of position player that I'm interested in at all, even a bench. So I'd rather have, if I'm drafting my season-long league, I've got 2 or 3 bench spots filled at least before I even think about a Russell Wilson type player, because I don't think he's any different at all from the next bunch of players that are going to be available. Be it the Aaron Rodgers, the Staffords, the Bradys, and I'll throw in some other names, the Trey Lances.
I was just about to ask you about him. I was going to say, if Trey Lance is named the day 1 starter, who would you rather have for season long?
Lance.
Okay, so I disagree there, but I understand why.
Let me be clear, because this is why you don't have to take a quarterback. When Lance is named the starter for the San Francisco 49ers, he will get from me. Now, that doesn't mean I'm going to draft him in the 4th round. I'm just saying, for me, I have him ranked above this entire group, including Russell Wilson, and the reason is because Lance's upside is so much better. And so if he hits, he is, Robert Griffin III, that first season, like the revelation. You got him late and he won you your league. Trey Lance will be available in most of your leagues, even in your dynasty. Says in dynasty, you're getting in Superflex dynasty. So 2 QB, where QB is king, you're getting Trey Lance at the end of the 2nd round of your startup draft.
Yeah, you took him like that. You took him like in the 1st round in one of our drafts.
I have, but I've also gotten him at the end of the 2nd round.
Yep.
And here's the thing: this guy should be. I mean, I can make an argument that he is the number 1 dynasty rookie this year. I can make a strong argument for that.
Yeah,
but
the best in best ball, one of my strategies when I've been playing is that I take like an elite QB that I know is going to be starting, and I take Trey Lance right now before he's even named the starter with my 2nd QB. So if I take someone like, just say Josh Allen or Dak Prescott in single QB, and then I pair him with Trey Lance, I'm not even worried that Trey Lance isn't starting in the first month of the season, because by the time Dak's bye comes around or I need him, Trey Lance hopefully will be starting by then.
See, I do it a little bit different, where I'll go where I'm counting on Lance to carry the team, and I'm taking him late, and then I try to add in like some mediocre,
like Daniel Jones, Derek Carr, that type of
not to that level of mediocrity, but one of these, maybe like a Trevor Lawrence,
Tom Brady,
or like a Brady, one of those types that should deliver consistent points with Lance being my upside guy. But
see,
guys,
you thought there wasn't going to be enough content to talk about quarterbacks, man. We're like 3/4 of the way through, and we haven't even touched the tight end position.
Yeah,
I told you, man, what I'm saying is quarterback is a much more interesting position when you talk about it in terms of superflex, and also even in single QB, it's become interesting because there is a clear divide between the mobile quarterbacks and the pocket passers.
I don't understand why people aren't getting it yet. Like, why is Trey Lance QB 19 by ADP? Are you guys crazy?
Well, because he hasn't been named the starter.
It doesn't matter. They're not coming in to bring this guy in to not play. Like, have you seen Jimmy Garoppolo? He was terrible. There's nothing that he brings to that team that any like Nick Mullins level player isn't doing the exact same thing. Like, Trey Lance is the number 2 pick in the draft. He is going to play.
Number 3. Jets took Zach Wilson.
Z Wizzles.
And meanwhile, he's being ignored.
I like, big mistake also. But I get it more with the Jets. Look at the weapons that Trey Lance has to work with. Deebo Samuel, that's my bike, punk. You got him. You've got Brandon Ayuk. Who the fuck is he? He was supposed to be the 2nd guy. Now he's the number 1 guy. You got George Kittle in the mix. Like, are you kidding me? This is a good group of players, and the team wants to run the football, and you know who's going to run it? Trey Lance. Yeah. This is a no-brainer, guys. Trey Lance is going to be a top 10 quarterback this upcoming season, and I would argue that Trey Lance will be a top 5 fantasy quarterback this year.
A couple other guys I want to ask you about.
Go ahead.
Does Sam Darnold have any upside?
This is the face of like I just smelled farts. That's what I think about. But yes. If Teddy Bridgewater did okay with that team.
So you think he's better than Teddy Bridgewater? Is what you're going to start with that? Let's start with that.
I think he's replacement level Teddy Bridgewater. It's hard to know because the curse of Adam Gase has washed over this poor young man to the point where.
But look, Ryan Tannehill. I mean, he could be the next Ryan Tannehill in a sense where he got out from Gase and did it. Now, keep in mind, Joe Burrow is older than Sam Darnold. I mean, Sam Darnold's going in year 4.
I think if you're taking Sam Darnold on your team, you're going to get a guy who's going to play all the games this year. You're getting a guy who has pretty good weapons, a familiar weapon in Robbie Anderson, amongst other things. And you're probably not getting a guy who's going to score a lot of fantasy points. I'm sorry, he's not that quarterback.
So you don't think he's got upside? I still like Sam Darnold. I think he's got all those. All those great weapons. I mean,
compared to who? Like where he's going. So if I want Sam Darnold, like, does he have upside compared to Baker Mayfield? Yeah. Carson Wentz.
How about, here's a good question for you then. If Jameis Winston's named the unquestioned starter in New Orleans, which one of those two QBs would you rather have? Jameis Winston or Sam Darnold?
Man, Jameis Winston has such a flaw. If it wasn't for Taysom Hill taking the touchdowns away at the goal line, Winston all day without even thinking twice. Okay. By far. But I'm worried about, so when you said unquestioned, that's a trick word because Taysom Hill then comes in and steals the goal line touches.
I got a couple more for you. A couple more because I'm trying to sort out our rankings here. That's why I'm talking to you. Okay, Sam Darnold or Daniel Jones?
Jones over Darnold.
Okay, couple more for you. Carson Wentz with his new team on Indianapolis versus Darnold with his new team.
It's so similar.
Okay, good. I have them back to back. And then lastly, Kirk Cousins or Sam Darnold.
Kirk Cousins over Darnold all day.
Okay, then we're in line here. Yeah. And I have, by the way, I have Tua over all of them for the upside in a 1 QB.
Man, I don't like Tua very much at all. So the names that I want to raise up here, I would take Joe Burrow over all of those guys. Let's start there.
Wait, hold on. Let's talk about Joe Burrow because for player profilers draft kit, I contributed the Joe Burrow write up for them, and Joe Burrow tore his ACL, MCL, and had other structural damage in week 11 last year. Week 11. I'm not saying that, and it's all systems go for Joe Burrow. That's the blurb. And I'm not saying he won't be the week 1 starter, but I'm saying is that will he be 100%? Will he be 70%?
What are we doctors? Like
I'm just saying, dude, ACL and MCL 7 months later. And they, the one problem last year with Cincinnati was the offensive line. They had the chance to take Penei Sewell. They passed. I understand why they took Jamar Chase, elite wide receiver. But is that offensive line going to be any better? I'm steering clear of Joe Burrow in every format this year.
I don't mind your reasonings for it. I don't. But
fading injury, yeah.
I cannot predict re-injuries. So your reasoning has a lot more to do with
history of no, not even re-injury. Like, is he recovered? If you fade injury optimism, right? You'll always make money in fantasy football. Like, other than Adrian Peterson coming back less than a year later from an ACL tear, and we agree he's superhuman and having that 2,000-yard season, most guys, we agree, take about 18 months to get back to being themselves. I just think that, like, with so many in a 1 quarterback league with so many options.
Who didn't take 18 months? Emmanuel Sanders comes back 7 months later from an Achilles tear and is fine.
Here, your boy Clipboard. Burrow over all of them. LSU.
All right, now I actually think Burrow is not good.
Here, he's got a couple more. He Wentz, Cousin Jones, but look at this. Yeah.
Well, let me give you some other names because you mentioned some names here, but I have other guys that I want to move ahead of this whole group. Okay, sleeper quarterbacks that I think we're missing the boat on. His sense of humor, I love that. So sleeper quarterbacks that we're missing the boat on. And I'm going to throw a couple names at you that deserve to be at the top of the rankings, in the top 15, above all of this crap. Above Tua, above Jones, above Kirk Cousins, above Carson Wentz, above Baker Mayfield, above Matt Ryan, above Joe Burrow, above Sam Darnold, above Derek Carr, above Cam Newton. Okay, you ready for this? Number 1. I already talked about Trey Lance. Zach Wilson. Move him up. Kid is young, is fresh, girlfriend, fucking smoking hot, mom, even hotter than his girlfriend. That tells me good decisions being made by this kid. Great set of weapons on the Jets. Jets team can't score. No running backs. That's going to do well for Zach Wilson. Above Zach Wilson, Ben Roethlisberger. You might say, Ben Roethlisberger always gets hurt. Elbow surgery. I don't give a fuck. The dude, when he's out there, is putting up points week after week. That Steelers team is throwing the football 50 times a game. Okay? I won $20,000 this NFL playoffs by stacking a DFS team with Claypool, Deontay Johnson, and Juju Smith-Schuster, and the tight end. That's how good. No, we're not talking about. But that's how good Roethlisberger. That's how much they want to throw. So I want him above all of those turds. And the last two, not one. Again, above Jones, Tua, Cousins, Wentz, Mayfield, Ryan, Burrow, Darnold, all of that. Justin Fields, if he gets the starting nod for Chicago, better than all of those guys. I get we don't know if he's going to start. I think it will happen.
Oh, it's going to happen in short order, man.
Yes.
It's Andy. It's not like, okay, it's like Jimmy Garoppolo is still young. Trey Lance is there, but like it's Andy Dalton. It's 33-year-old Andy Dalton. This is the guy they moved up for. Now, I told you on the phone the other day, the only reason that Justin Fields probably won't start week 1 is because this coaching staff, this front office is on the hot seat, and they want to buy time. Their motivation is to buy time. So if they go 1-4, 2-5, and they're about to be fired, they're like, hey, we hired so we drafted Justin Fields. Give us a chance. Yeah. That's when they insert him, and that's when they'll buy themselves another month.
Let me make the Fields argument for you here now. Oh my God. All right. Stop it. Take that off. All right. Take that off. Do you really want now to put on your bench in your season-long league, or in your do you really want to have like Sam Darnold sitting there? You really want to have like Baker Mayfield sitting there? Or would you rather have Justin Fields sitting there so that when he gets the nod, Justin Fields gets the nod, now you have Trey Lance 2.0. You've got Kyler Murray 2.0. You've got a running quarterback, Jalen Hurts. He is Jalen Hurts, the same guy. So why would I place Baker Mayfield, who is on a run-first team? We know he has the talent. Browns fans, don't at me, bruh. Don't at me. I like Baker Mayfield, very talented guy. Awesome. His house. Love the commercials. Love the commercials that Baker Mayfield does. It's my house. Get the fuck out. Having a book reading group. All of that. I love that. But do I want Baker Mayfield sitting waiting in the wings as my QB2? Or would I rather put Justin Fields? I can get him later. And when he's starting, he might start from day one. When he's starting, he's going to be Jalen Hurts, top 5, top 6 fantasy scorer. I got one more for you, says. My favorite of them all, Ryan Fitzmagic, the single most underrated fantasy asset of the 2021 fantasy football season. Why is this guy not ranked higher? He is a gunslinger. Now, I get it. Washington does not want to throw the football very much. They've got a great defense, blah, blah, blah. That is all true. But this is Fitzpatrick, dude. This guy is a scorer. He will run the football. He's a wild man when he's out there. He's got the best, that's right, I said it, the best wide receiver in the National Football League that no one knows about, in Terry McLizzles on his team. That's right, I said it. The best wide receiver in the National Football League. You heard it here first. Okay? Has never had a quarterback to throw to him. They added some more talent on that team, Curtis Samuel. They've got a running back who is a wide receiver in Antonio Gibson, and a second running back who's also a wide receiver in J.D. McKissick. What more does the man need to do to rise up the rankings to tell you this is a great fantasy asset for the 2021 fantasy football season? What more does he got to do?
Yeah, I think that Fitzpatrick, there's definitely some enthusiasm about him, and he's a very interesting redraft player. And again, in Dynasty, he's interesting too, because you never know. I mean, he's one of these guys that was like basically a cast off in Buffalo. What was his first team? I mean, he played in Tennessee, he played in Houston. He's been passed around as a hired gun. He played did he play for the Jets too?
He played for the Jets, was terrible.
Right. I mean, in Tampa Bay, I mean, he had like a 4-game run where it was like an all-time run.
Yes.
And he's got like one of the most interesting football careers. He seems to get better. Like it's almost like a wine, like a fine wine. He
has absolutely gotten better. Like
there's the weirdest thing. It's the weirdest thing, because he was like a cast-off scrub, 5 years ago.
He made his bones with the Bills, look good for a minute. It always falls off with him. He's never able to keep it up, but it doesn't matter. Like, this man has gotten better with age. He has swagger. He's learned. He's a professional quarterback. He still has athleticism. Could he get hurt? Sure, fine, but because he's old. But like, anybody can get hurt. Beyond that, he's just way underrated. Why would you ever take Cam Newton over Ryan Fitz? Cam Newton sucks, right? His only hope is to run in a touchdown. He's old, he gets hurt, and he's got a young quarterback that's going to pop him off the team sooner than later. Plus, he sucks. He sucks at football now. Like, sorry, hater, don't hate. Guy's really good at choosing costumes for the conferences after the game, but he's not very good at actually throwing the football to open wide receivers. Let's be real. Why would I take that guy? Give me Ryan Fitzpatrick over all of that. So I'm taking Fitzpatrick. For me, above Daniel Jones, above Tua Tagovailoa, above Kirk Cousins, above Wentz, above Mayfield, above all of those guys. I like Roethlisberger above all of those guys. I love Lance, certainly above all of those guys. Zach Wilson, and of course, Justin Fields.
All right. So as we wrap this up, the quarterback discussion, we didn't even get to the tight ends. I'm
sorry.
We got
to do another one for tight end now.
Yeah, we got to do another one for tight ends. I mean, we advertised. We did talk a little bit about tight ends in the beginning. We talked about, the top of the board a little bit. So we will continue this discussion. But you've given a lot of good takes on this podcast, but look at the board. Give me one hot take, bold call, as you will, about the quarterback position in 2021. One. I'll give you one, and then we'll get out of here.
Here's my bold call. Right, I've already given a lot of bold calls, so I'm going to go to a different one that I haven't mentioned yet. My bold call is Taysom Hill wins the Saints starting quarterback job and winds up as a top 10 fantasy producer at the QB position this season.
That's a good one. Now, and you know what? I'm going to get your take on one other thing. How are you treating Deshaun Watson with what we know today? Okay,
that's a great spot.
Right now, I buried him in the DFS Army rankings. I have him, so you're just not getting him, because why would you? But I guess there's an argument to take him in like round 8, round 9, just in case it pans out if you were drafting today. But
let me tell you, I love this already. I love Deshaun Watson as a dynasty piece. I have read the case against him. I've read the complaints, and there's nothing in here that rises up to the level of you're going to lose your career. There's no clipboard. Somebody I want to trade for Taysom Hill. I almost wish I didn't give him my bold call. He's got Taysom in the league. So I want to talk Watson. I've read the case. This man did not do anything that rises to the level of losing your career over. I don't want to get into it beyond that, because maybe my description will sound assholey, but there's nothing about it that rises to that level. Therefore, I believe his career will continue. Let's start there. Okay, his career is done in Houston. We know this. Will he play this season? I cannot say. My guess is probably. And the number one potential destination for him, there are two or three spots that I think work. Man, it's tough to predict. Denver seems like the perfect landing spot for him. Seems like it. Don't know. They don't have a quarterback in Denver. He would be great. They have great weapons. If he landed in Denver, top 5 QB.
Top 5. We'll leave it there then.
Yeah.
We'll leave it there. All right, man. We'll just do a quick outro. Just tell just tell them how to sign up for DFS Army quick. Don't go through the whole rigmarole, but just
there we go. Guys, you already know this. You watch the podcast. Number one, don't forget to like and subscribe to this podcast. It really helps us, people find this pod. the Bolt Call Pod is the best fantasy football pod in existence. But
and plus, if you got value from this podcast, that's how you help us out. You smash the like button, you hit the subscribe button on the channel. And by the way, the DFS Army YouTube channel is growing, man. We're over 5,000 members now. And I know we were half of that 18 months ago. So people are catching on with all of the great content that we're putting up over there.
We've also made a concerted effort to put a lot more public content out there. We were doing a lot of behind the paywall stuff, and we still do a ton of that. So if you want to be a part of the team, the DFS Army team, we've had 200K winners this NBA season already. We continue to dominate all daily fantasy sports. And of course, we got you covered for full season-long fantasy football, season-long DFS, NFL. I love NFL, I live for it. So you can get signed up over at dfsarmy.com as a VIP. You can use promo code SAYS. Our monthly VIP is $69.99 a month. You get 10% off with promo code SAYS. That gets you in at about $62 a month. And let me tell you something. Our competitor site, real competitors that we have, they're charging double what we do, and their content isn't half as good. Their optimizer, not as good. Their content, not as good. Their tools, garbage. We have multiple Millie Maker winners. We got 200K winners this NBA season. We don't fuck around. We're serious about DFS. We're serious about fantasy. We play with our own money. Get signed up. DFS Army, code SAYS, hookup SAYS. Every time you do that, he gets credit. We keep him on for another month. I told him, you don't get a fucking sign up, you're gone. He brings in another guy. That's how we do it. All right, that's going to do it for this episode.
We'll back next week with the tight ends. Tight end focus.
Apparently, we could do a whole hour on tight ends. So,
I'm telling you underestimate the depth that we can break this stuff down.
We'll have tight end pictures. We're going to do the whole deal. Tight end position next time. See you next time, everybody. Good luck. Crush those drafts.
Got the best coaches in the game, we really ain't playing. We regroup up in the Slack chat where the coaches debrief.